Welcome to the Way Willing podcast. My name is Jason, the host for this show, where it's going to be my job to bring you amazing guests who have taken a leap of faith as far as their career is concerned, and they've left a safe and secure 9-to-5 in their rear view in order to pursue a passion. And our first guest is Alex Qian. Alex made the leap about a year and a half ago into photography and content creation and videography, and he left the finance world behind where he was making a six-figure income, $100,000 a year, safe, secure, very, very comfortable living, and he was not fulfilled. He was spending every second of his free time creating on the side, giving him what his soul needed and what he loved doing the most, and that affected his work performance on the job. And eventually he was laid off from that job because his performance was suffering. And instead of just re-upping his resume and throwing it out there on LinkedIn, he decided to pursue his passion. And as I said, he's about 18 months into his journey, and he's done some amazing brand work. As a result, he's worked with the Tourism Board of California. He has worked with the clothing brand Patagonia. He has started the Shy Shooters, which is a content creating community in Chicago, Illinois. They are a smaller group of a bigger global conglomerate, and they have sectors in the UK, the Bay Area in San Francisco, and PNW, and I think there's other chapters out there around the world as well. And yeah, so it's basically been going pretty well for him, and we're going to dive into his story, and he's going to tell you a little bit about how he went about his process and making his decision and how it's been going for him. So hopefully you guys will come along for the ride. Without further ado, here's Alex Qian. All right, I'm here with Alex Qian. This is episode 1. So,
hello.
There he is. Tell us a little bit about your story, where you're at right now with it.
Yeah, it's been kind of crazy up until this point, I guess. Like right now, I'm at a point where we just, with one of the organizations I started, just showed a gallery in partnership with like a really big kind of clothing brand, Patagonia. We were showcasing not only my own art, but like just other local Chicago like talented just artists, their art as well. And that's something that I started in my living room 2 years ago, so and we're doing that in like I said, like retail stores with big brands, as well as with one of our local supporters, 360 Chicago, which is one of the famous kind of observatory decks in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And it's just really cool to see how far at least one of those ideas has come.
Yeah, for sure.
And then aside from that, I'm just doing photography, videography for a living now, something I love. And that's a result of just a lot of kind of hustling over the last year since I left my full-time corporate finance job last June. So that was like 17 months ago. Yeah,
about almost like a
little over a year and a half about.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just cool. It's been crazy, like not having the normal kind of lifestyle and routine that I used to have, and for like a while too, for like 8 years. And just doing what I love every day, and for myself, I think most importantly, it's just like not like selfishly, I guess sort of selfishly, but like it's also just kind of like that story you always hear where you're working for yourself and not really, for like the man or something like that, what have you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so it's been about a year and a half. Can you take us through leading up until you decided to go into photography and pursue that as your livelihood?
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I worked in a corporate setting for, I went to college and everything, did the traditional, go to a 4-year college, come out, and then just get a job and start grinding. At least in the U.S., it's kind of the norm.
For sure.
And it never really felt right, even when I was like, it felt good that I was like making money, right? Because like going from like $20 being a big deal in college to like, getting your first paycheck, like salary paycheck, is like really nice, and like that was cool for a little bit, but like I think always in the back of my head I was never really satisfied with just, after a while it was just show up, do what you're supposed to do, get a paycheck, and then go home, and you just rinse and repeat, every day. And then you got a couple days on the weekends, couple holidays and stuff like that, and it just all blends together, right? Like I used to talk to friends all the time about how like time would just like fly, right? And it still does fly, but in a different sense. It's not like I don't feel like I'm wasting. Yeah, I guess that's a good way of phrasing it, like wasting time, right? It's all going towards stuff that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
And like,
sure.
I'm hoping like making an impact in like, other people that are like struggling to kind of find their purpose, or like that confidence to like do something similar, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then like it's just, I was to go back, take a step back, like how I ended up just kind of taking that leap was really kind of going through a lot of internal struggles. And so after a while I got like really, I think I was definitely like depressed,
Yeah.
and just like was not in a good mental state, and like was seeing like therapists and like taking all these medications and stuff. And I was like, at a certain point I was like, is there something wrong with me, right? Like why don't I fit into like all this stuff when everyone else is like seems to be handling it and like just kind of taking whatever life comes at them, right? And it was like, is there something wrong with me, or am I just not in the right place, And so I think very clearly it was both of those. Like it was like there was nothing wrong with me, and I just had to really start pursuing what like gave me that energy, and like and fuel to like just kind of like build something on my own, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're hitting on something that's a huge insight. I've dealt with bouts of depression on my own. Not it's self-diagnosed, but I've had down times where like I didn't really see a lot of hope and a lot of reason to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And I've had bouts of that throughout my life. I've never seen a therapist really or anything like that, but I just know that I haven't been right, and it's pretty easy to tell that. So you kind of dialing in on that and recognizing that within yourself, and I'm sure you probably talked about it with the therapist as well and hashed that out. How did you know that photography was it for you?
Yeah. Well, I guess I never really touched on that too, like as part of that story was I think that old lifestyle, I'm thankful for it because, I realized it was definitely something I didn't want to do. And then it also provided me the means to travel, right? And to develop hobbies, right? Yeah. And photography was one of them, right? And so I guess I discovered those both. Travel first for sure. And I think it's pretty common for a lot of photographers.
Yes, definitely.
Because like I always hear like friends of mine like being like, yeah, I picked up a camera because like I was traveling and I just wanted to bring stuff home with me, and like and then it becomes a slippery slope, right? And especially if you're kind of like our type, where we're just like just very like attention. It's hard to keep our attention, and so like we're just jumping everywhere. And it becomes very addicting. And then, once you realize you kind of have something like where people are like, damn, these photos are really good, it becomes like a validation system where you're like, okay, I want to keep doing this because like clearly I have something. But yeah, so like I discovered it through like traveling and just wanting to like bring those stories back because, you know, not only for myself, but just to like show others. And I think it's a fine line because it's like you can, you know, throw it in people's faces and be like, oh, I went here and this is dope, you know, versus like, this is a beautiful moment that I captured and it makes it art instead of like
I think that
what social media is nowadays, you know?
For sure. Like I know that feeling well. I think it depends on who the viewer is and how they, basically what they're going through, like how they choose to perceive what you're doing. And like, oh, this guy's a prick. He's just showing off that he went to this place again or whatever. I think that has more to do with what's going on inside of them and how they're viewing it. Mm-hmm. Unless you're just flat out going out there and saying like, you suck, I'm going to Tokyo and I'm going to Australia and all this other stuff, and you're living this life that you hate. And, but nobody's really like that. Like
I think
that I've met.
Yeah. Well, I think that touches on kind of, it's like the whole backlash on like the influencer thing nowadays, because like most of the time it's just a picture of you in a place, and it's not really about the place, it's about you. And I think that's the difference, is because like for us, like we're bringing back pictures from the same place, but most of the time we're not even in it. Like if you were to remove our name or like our association with it, you probably couldn't even tell that it was like our work. You know what I mean? Sure. And I think that's the difference, is because it's not about you. And I think for us it hasn't been about us. We're just doing what we love and sharing it.
Got that right, brother. So photography, you found that you got energy from it. What gave you the confidence to say, okay, this can be something I can do? This might be something that I can make some money at and leave, you know, the security behind.
I think, I don't know, to be honest, like that confidence. Well, so like I've always been the type to, like, if I want something, I'm going to go get it. You know what I mean? And so like, I didn't know if it was going to kind of turn out the way that it has so far, you know, where like today, for example, like I had a shoot in the morning and a shoot in the afternoon before I came over here. Right. And like to be able to like just fill my time like that and make a living out of it on a Sunday. Right.
For sure.
It's just, I think like the important thing is I didn't plan for it or like force it. Right. I just did what I just like put it out there and put my work out there and shared my passion, and people pick up on that, and you know, when they know that you're like in love with what you do, I think that they want you more so, to work with you more so than someone, just like anyone with a camera, right? Because there's so many people out there that do photography, you know. There's so many different niches that you can make a living out of it too. So it's like not even a matter of having, it's like, why not, you know?
Yeah, so I was hoping you were going to dive into the story that you told the other day at 360.
Yeah. Actually, I guess there's just a lot, and I guess there's always more to the story, right, than is like, or that meets the eye. But yeah, anyways, so like more about that story. This was on my way. It was during a commute one morning, just, you know, to, at the time, my job. And I think this was when I started really just kind of giving into like that impulse that I would kind of feel. And I think that you have it as well. And like, I think that it benefits us as photographers, because like we'll see something, right? And I think it's most of the time the best kind of like images or moments that are captured that are in the moment, right? That we just kind of see and act on. This was one of those things where like I got up, and for some reason that morning, before I went into work, I decided I'm going to shoot sunrise. But not only just sunrise, this was one of those brutal Chicago mornings where it was like a -40 degree wind chill. And, you know, the lakefront was frozen over. the whole lake was frozen. And if you're from Chicago, that those are the brutal days. Yeah.
I don't love the feel of it, but I love shooting in that.
Yeah, it's super unique, and like it's cool because I don't think up until recently a lot of people really knew that was like what Chicago looked like. Just like the lake smoldering and just like the cool ice from the water just washing up and freezing overnight, as well as like the city steaming, right? So yeah, I decided that morning, and I was like, this was before I was kind of a little bit more aware of like the risks of my health when you go out in like those conditions.
Yeah.
I was just like in my like slacks, like ready to go to work, and my like light jacket, and I just went out there with my gear and snapped some photos, right? And I didn't really think much of them. I thought they were cool pictures and stuff. And then this also coincided with the time I started really sharing stuff on social media, like right at the beginning. And and then one of the photos, I showed to my coworker, and it got passed around the office, and then like got on an email chain and hit like the media team within the company. I used to work in a big bank that of like 30,000 people, big global bank, and it got passed all the way to New York, which is where the headquarters were, and ended up one day on like the internal. So like every big company like that has a big like internal webpage, and everyone has access to, and like pretty much sees first thing in the morning because that's what you log into. And it was on the front page of that website. Wow, and it was not only that, but like it was on there, and it was right under the CEO of the company at the time. He like they would share like videos, right, of just like kind of what was going on in the company, and he did an interview with like MSNBC or something like that, and it was like his interview and then my photo, and it was like I was like, damn, this is so cool. And like my coworkers like this is like crazy, and like and then that was like I joke because like we do social media now and stuff, and like a big thing for us is like getting features, right? And so I joked that was like my first feature.
Yeah, that's a huge feature right there.
Yeah, and then like that also, I think the point we're trying to make with that is that that was when I kind of really started to think about like that I had something here, and that like this is something maybe I could pursue. Yeah. For sure. So I mean, that's crazy that things like that happen. I mean, like that doesn't happen to everybody. Where I mean, I think there's plenty of people in this world that have a passion and stuff like that. But to get like an event like that to happen, like an occurrence that is kind of out of the ordinary. It's like a sign. Yeah,
almost a sign. Like you showed it to a coworker. The coworker was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And then they showed it to another coworker, so on and so forth. Word of mouth spread, and then before you know it, your image is right below the CEO of the huge corporation. Wow, that's pretty sick.
And like I was joking with you, I'm definitely like one day, just gonna frame it and just kind of put it on my mantle or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like you're in the midst. You're in the early stages of what you're going to become. Like who knows? Like in 10 years from now, you can be the mogul or the CEO of running some like multi-million-dollar media company. Who knows?
That would be crazy.
Where your arc is going to go. I don't know if you want to be that big or not, but like anything great starts small, right?
Yeah.
So who knows? That's kind of why like I want to gear this podcast towards talking to people who are kind of fresh into it. I mean, you're a year and a half in, and you're doing well. I'd like to shift though. I want to get some psychology behind like who you are. Like, what was your childhood like?
Oh man, I've never really talked about that, but I mean, I'm kind of glad you asked because I think that's a really big part in like who I am. Not only as like a person, like who I am today, but like my identity as like an artist. And then like if you look at my work, it's definitely got a distinct theme to it, right? It's like moody, mostly moody, and like I always emphasize like light in some portion of it, And so like to me, I think that was partially because of like the depression I touched upon earlier, whereas like, because I mostly view the world that way, where it's like, I'm definitely a cup half full type of guy now, whereas I used to be the opposite, and everything looked like hopeless, right?
For sure.
But there's always that like light or like, just like something that you can kind of escape from, like off the image, right? That you can't see.
Yeah.
That's there, and that I think everybody has.
Yeah.
They just have to kind of get out of that funk.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, back to the point was like, yeah, like growing up, I'm first generation. Both my parents are Chinese.
Okay.
And growing up like in America was kind of weird because, especially I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago.
Okay.
And just like my experience was, being kind of like an outcast, because like I was just like super different. I was that like the only one of like a couple Asian kids in like school, pretty much growing up all the way up until college.
Yeah.
That's when I really started to like associate with like a more diverse group of people, but for the most part, I grew up around just predominantly like white, middle class Americans, and I think it shaped me in a way that like was good and bad. It was bad because like I think when I was younger I actually resented, and it's so fucked up because like, oh sorry, I don't know if I could swear on this thing, but like it's so weird because like
say whatever you want.
it's weird because like how can you grow up to resent like your own race, and ethnicity, right?
Yeah,
it's like super messed up, and that's because like I don't know if I wouldn't say I was like bullied. I didn't have like people coming after me. It was more of an indirect kind of like treatment where like all my friends, like, people called me like the Asian kid, and like I was like the token, whatever. And that definitely affects you. I think I learned how to like kind of play it off and like show that like it didn't affect me, but like of course, like, yeah, when you're young too, like of course it affects you because like you're different and you can't control it.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you're not considered an adult till you're what, like 25. Your brain isn't fully developed, so
Yeah.
you're very impressionable at that age. So how people treat you matters. Like,
Yeah.
I can identify with what you're saying right now. Because I'm mixed, so I grew up in a bicultural household, and I never knew which side I should go with. Like,
Yeah.
my mother's Vietnamese, and the Vietnamese side of the family was always like, you're too white. And then the white side of the family was never really accepting of the Vietnamese side. So it was definitely like a friction all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't look Asian, so I never had to deal with like what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
my oldest brother was born in Saigon, and he looks the most Asian, whatever that means. He looks the most Asian out of us. So he dealt with some of that stuff, and I saw firsthand him dealing with that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
and then my mom as well, because she has a very, very strong Vietnamese accent. So even like a couple of years ago, she's still dealing with it just because of the way she speaks, But
Yeah.
no, that definitely impacts somebody in how they kind of view the world and stuff like that. So, what about your parents? Like, how were they with you as far as
Well, actually, I wanted to touch upon one thing.
Yeah,
It was like I think a big part of what a lot of our generation grew up too with was shows like South Park, right?
Yeah.
And South Park is an amazing show, and like I love it, and like but I think that they train people to kind of be really insensitive towards certain races, because like you know how Asian people were portrayed on it, and it was like that carried over, right? And that was what I had to deal with like my friends kind of joking around, right? That's what I was like saying, but like it kind of sucked at the same time, because it's like,
for sure. I mean, like,
it's derogatory.
we're
but
human beings, so it's
yeah.
like they're gonna put you in this box of like who you are because of what is on that.
Of what
the
they see.
characterization on that show is who
Yeah.
you are because you have that color skin, you have, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of growth that our country needs to make.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But,
And I think that the show has matured a lot since then. But yeah, it was like, just like, it was tough,
Yeah, for sure.
But back to my my relationship with my parents. I think like, we've never really been like super close. So like even now, they don't really, I don't think, fully understand like what I'm doing,
Yeah.
And they're supportive in the fact that like they know that something's happening, and like they're kind of allowing me to grow into it, versus I think most traditional parents that are immigrants and stuff like that would put their foot down and not let their kids kind of like follow that path, right? Because they come here to give their kids an opportunity. Like most immigrant parents, their thought process is, first and foremost, they didn't want their kids to be as successful as possible, but they still think that that's going through that path and like, getting as good an education as possible, and then just like moving up whatever ladder is.
The most secure path, going to college,
Yeah.
becoming a doctor or lawyer where you're going to make a good income.
Yeah.
That is a lot of what happens with immigrant parents. Like, you should be a doctor or lawyer. I heard that growing up.
Yeah.
Actually, my mom did always say you don't want to work for someone else. So, I mean, I guess there was that. But no, they want you to be as
they want for you what they didn't have.
Correct.
Which makes sense, and I totally get it, but they also don't understand that like the opportunity that we also have to pursue that path. We also have the opportunity to build literally anything we want, especially in this time of day when we have the technology and stuff that we have.
Preach, yes.
It's like, and that they don't understand because it's not something that's defined, and they don't know about like the Gary V's in the world, or like whatever successful entrepreneurs, the Mark Cubans and stuff, and like they don't know. That's not what they see and are. And really want you to mimic, because it's like, I guess those guys are just like, guys that are obviously successful, but like it's hard to follow that path because it's not a path that you can follow. It's different for anyone that does hit that level, I guess.
Yeah, everyone's story is different.
As
far as the creative field, like there's no one that has a framework for you to just walk on, a blueprint for you to follow step for step, and you're going to end up as successful as them. Like, it just doesn't happen like that. At least I haven't discovered it. If somebody has it and puts it out for $10 or whatever, I'm buying that bad boy. But
I think if that were the case, everybody would do it, right?
For sure. Yeah. So when things get tough, obviously I'm guessing that things get tough. There's times where stuff happens where maybe you don't know when your next paycheck is coming in. This is all me just assuming, but what keeps you going? Like, what is driving you to be successful?
I mean, that's like a really, really big point of this whole process. And it is a process, right? That one, I had to like retrain kind of my thought process around, because I came from a world where for 8 years I was doing what I was supposed to do and collecting a paycheck.
Right.
And when you leave that, it becomes you're literally just like, ripping yourself out of your comfort zone. And it was super tough for me mentally too, when I first started to go a month and not know where that next paycheck was going to come from, right? And it was super stressful. And nowadays it still is a little bit stressful, but not as much, because one, I learned that as long as I keep doing what I'm doing, as well as being more established, but the established part aside, putting that experience aside, if I were to put myself in that same position where I wasn't sure, and it's just like so much uncertainty. It's just you learn to become comfortable with that uncertainty. Yeah. And like for example, last month I didn't really make that much money. I probably made less than $1,000 last month. Yeah. But that's because over the summer I worked, and I made up for that, and I chose to give up. I could have made that money. I had the gigs. And I passed them up because I had travel opportunities. And I decided that opportunity cost was enough for me to forego in order to take these trips and like develop like content, like just for me, for my artwork and stuff like that. And just because I worked all summer, I didn't like really travel much over the summer, so it was all worth it to me, and then I just kind of had that confidence that things would work out because I know that I'm doing the right things. And even though I'm giving up, a couple grand, like I don't need that money because I know what it was like from my corporate experience to have that extra money and just be like still unhappy, Right. Like I don't need that money. Like that money, it would have been nice to have, but I didn't need it. And then like I came home and I'm still able to fill that time and kind of make up for a little bit. Right. And yeah, it's just learning to kind of go with the flow, right? Right. In a sense. I don't know. I feel like I'm like rambling now.
So I mean, like if you get into a pinch, what do you do? Like if like bills are due and
yeah.
That kind of stuff. I mean, in the real world, like hopefully we can provide some insight for people that are going to do this. Like they've been on the cusp. They want to try to get out and do something, but like there's health insurance you got to worry about. You know, there's if you have a mortgage, if you have kids and stuff like that. Like, so what kind of plan do you have if something, I don't know, if you were to try, if for some odd reason there was 2008 happens all over again. Yeah. Stock market crashes, and leads dry up. People start to be tight with their money.
Yeah, I think what helps for me is a number of things, and I think the first thing is that because I've had a successful career before all of this, right? I kind of have that confidence, and I guess it's a blind confidence because I'm not really sure, right? But I'm pretty sure that my resume is good enough for me to just go back. If you need and to. With everything that I'm doing and I have done, it only helps that story. Absolutely. If I need to go back. Absolutely. And so I'm not really worried. Like if it comes to that, then it comes to that. And you know what the biggest thing for me was when I was making that jump was just being like, okay, I'm late 20s, single. I rent. I used to rent before I moved out of my old place. Like my parents live an hour away. Right. If I don't do this, then, on the contrary to like my parents thinking that I'm like crazy for doing it, I'm doing them a disservice by not doing that, because like I'm not taking that chance that like we have here in the U.S. and like the Western world. Absolutely. Right? Because that opportunity is available to all of us. To an extent. For sure. So, I mean, in a sense, it's like what you're doing is honoring their sacrifice by making my own. Yeah. Because you did leave something. They wanted the best for you. And the best for you was to do what makes you happy and that you're actually amazing at, and that gives you energy. So that's honorable, to say the least. Yeah. So many people are not doing that. Right. So. Yeah, thanks, man. And like I said, like I think and I used to have this mindset where like I had to be at a certain had to hit these like certain benchmarks by like 30 or whatever, and like everyone's got this pressure on them to like, we live in a very like, I guess like high kind of achieving society where people are always like, obviously I think it's normal for people to want like some sort of status or like achievement by like a certain point, but like it's become so competitive that like you know, like it's like toxic in a way.
For sure. I mean, we're in America especially, we're in a rat race.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've traveled quite a bit. I've traveled quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen how other people live and seen some differences, some major differences.
Yeah. And there's more to life,
yeah,
for sure.
Without a doubt. I mean, if travel does nothing else, it does that. Even if we didn't bring the camera with us and take one photo and we just, soaked it all in and experienced it, like, you see firsthand, okay, life doesn't have to be the way that we're living it.
Mm-hmm.
We can make it wherever we want, especially here.
Yeah.
But we get so indoctrinated into as you said earlier, like the college degree, get a job right away, security, 40 to 50 hours a week, get a pension after 40 years, and then that's your life. It's just a very boxed, like cookie cutter life to live.
Yeah.
And
and most of the time it's not what people want. It's just what they're told to do or what other people are doing so that they want, because it looks successful. And that's another thing too, is like what looks successful is like, it's dangerous because like people only show their successes most of the time.
Right.
So like and that's why I think I enjoy sharing my stories, because like it's most of the time just not successful, and like it's mostly just hustle and
it's honest.
Yeah.
And like I've told you this several times in person, like it's inspirational, because I feel that it is rare. It is rare that people go after what they really want. It sounds so absurd when you say it out loud.
Yeah.
Like you're here for a short amount of time, nothing's guaranteed and all that stuff, and then you're going to do something that you're not passionate about, and you're not happy, and you're not fulfilled, and you know that.
Yeah.
But it's comfortable, it's secure, you're going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And stuff. It's just, it's sad. I just feel like it's part of the bigger problem of why, people aren't happier.
Yeah.
Like if you're not happy, how are you going to make anybody else around you happy? Like when you pursue your passion and you're happy, you're going to bring different energy to the people around you. Like for sure. Like,
well, actually, so like that's a good point. And this goes back to, I don't think I actually fully answered your question about like what you do when you get in a pinch. And I think that's a big driver for why people get stuck in these things, is because, well, one is like the comfort. And if you're not comfortable, then it's mostly because you have something holding you back. Maybe it's like health reasons, things of that sort. And that's stuff that's like out of your control. So like I'm lucky in that regard where I haven't seen a doctor in like 3 years or something like that. I don't get sick much. So I'm lucky that I'm like healthy.
Right. So are you covered
but
now? Like if
healthcare?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's I don't know if no.
I mean, it's good to know. It's people like.
But no, I am waiting. There's a reason for it, is because like when I left last year, I missed open enrollment.
Gotcha.
And so this year I'm waiting till November 1st, which is open enrollment for 2020 to get healthcare. Yeah. And it wasn't worth it for me. And I took a big risk because some shit could happen. It still can happen. There's still 2 months or a month left. But it's I think, just like it's a big risk, and it's everything that I've done has been a huge risk. Yeah. I've given up a lot of opportunity costs in my career. I've given up just a lot. And like, where was I going with this? Oh, the pinch thing. So like, I actually think I function better now. And I think our society, especially in America, runs around like showing that you have money and like showing that you're living a good life, and like people overspend and like have shitty financial habits because of it. And that adds to that stress. So like people think that they need a lot more than they actually do. And that keeps them in these miserable positions because they're making a certain amount that allows them to do that. But they're just basically flaunting that, the facade that they're happy. Right. And so now I make a lot less than I did at my previous job, but I'm making enough, and I'm thankful that I am making enough from, you know, what I'm doing. And I actually have more in savings than I did when I worked in that job, because I felt like I had to spend on clothes, right, to show up at work with like a nice pressed, you know, shirt and ties and all that stuff.
Yeah.
All that stuff sits in my closet at home now. I don't have to spend on that. I don't have to spend on drinks to go out because, you know, I'm living for the weekend and I need to release, right? And I don't. Most of my spending now is just my travel budget, my gear, and those are things that only help and build my business,
right.
And then the rest is being saved. And so now I have actually a better cushion, and so I'm not in a pinch. I'm never in a pinch, and so I can do things like I did last month, where I just took the whole month, took a lot of the month off, and forewent like some opportunities in order to, you know, do what I wanted.
In order to live.
Yeah, exactly.
To get after
That's a very tough, like I said, like thought, like mindset to get into.
Yeah.
Because we are trained to go through these routines, and yeah, once you start kind of doing what I just explained, it's very unnatural and it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
But that's just because, you know, if you grew up in the U.S., you went through 12 years of that routine that you've been kind of raised to grow into, you know?
Yeah, I mean, depending on where you went to school and who you were around, I mean, I know that there's anomalies that exist and everything like that, but I mean, generally speaking, at least for me and my experience, I mean, everybody was middle class and preparing themselves for a middle class lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And
Yep.
there's just so many different things you can do with your life.
Yeah.
How much did you make, if you're comfortable
In my old career,
divulging that? Yeah.
it was 6 figures.
6 figures.
Yeah.
There you go. This guy left a 6-figure income to pursue his passion.
Yeah.
Talk about some balls right there.
Yeah.
You got to give that just commands respect to me. I mean, like
Thanks.
that's a very, very comfortable living, and to leave it all
Mm-hmm.
behind to chase after something is just, I find it phenomenal.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
So, question that I definitely wanted to make sure that I asked. Tell me the worst thing that's happened in this last year and a half. And then we'll get to the flip side of that as well.
It's funny because I don't really remember anything bad happening. The worst things that have happened are getting flaked on for a job.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of one of the organizations that I started, just kind of learning how to manage people and how relationships can go sour when you know, you don't plan for because you start this like it started with like friends, right? And then as things evolved and get more serious, expectations grow, and you have to make that decision to be like, well, they're a good friend of mine, but they're not helping the organization, right? And so that brings in like a leadership and management perspective that I just didn't have experience with before, and you kind of have to make tough decisions, right?
Yeah.
So those are the most negative things. It's not, I've never had like super big setbacks, and like using those examples, right? All of them have been positives if I look at it in a different way, because I learned that when I got flaked on a job to include in my contract that I need a deposit up front. And if that happens, they're still liable for it. Right. And then I still get paid. Right. So I'm covering my own ass. Yeah. And then in that case of just like having to make those tough decisions with the people that are close to me, but also keeping like my business at the forefront, right? It's like that then I learned to keep the emotion, right? Like, this person is fun and I like them, but doesn't necessarily mean that they're great for what I want to do, right? Or where we want to go, right? Yeah, And so you learn to evaluate people on hard skills versus like, how people talk or like present themselves. It's like, you become very specific about what you need and like what you need from people. And I'm probably missing a lot of setbacks right now, but like a lot of it's just the same situation over and over again. It's like all of them have become a learning process, you know?
So you're failing forward, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Each one has helped me grow in a different way.
Yeah. Spoken like a true entrepreneur right there. So on the flip side, what are some, I know some of this stuff already, but for the audience, what is some of the cool things or like the best things that have happened to you as a result that maybe you would not have been able to partake in if you kept your job in finance?
I mean, all the trips, obviously, super cool. Yeah. Some of the really cool opportunities. Like the last couple of months have been pretty crazy. I've been fortunate enough to land some pretty cool commercial projects. Yeah. So, I'm starting right now. I'm in the midst of producing some content for Boosted Boards, and it's been super fun and a really cool experience. I got to travel with the tourism board in California, bringing Enterprise, the rental company, along, and they gave us Teslas, and we just we got 2 Teslas, and we just just ripped those things around California for a week.
I was all looking at your stories. I saw it all. So
dude, it was so fun. Yeah. And that's the dream too, is like all these trips, and that's always been my vision, is like this was a tool for me to make travel a living, right? And take these trips and like just work, make it into work. Cause like travel is great for me. I'm the type that I always feel like I need to be working on something or producing or like making, like not really wasting time, you know? Right. And travel's great, but like I'm not really the type to go to a place and just like sightsee and stuff like that, right? I think most photographers are that way, where we're going and we're working, like we're going from spot to spot to spot, and we're trying to capture it in like the best way, right? And like in the highest quality.
Absolutely.
So, so like another cool like thing that has happened, I guess, is I did a big trip last year actually to like Europe and then Asia after that, and I produced some videos for another big brand, Western Digital, and that was like my first foray into video. So that's sick. Yeah, and it's just been like all these cool opportunities that have come up, mostly because I put myself out there. Right. And then it's cool. It's just like the whole like network effect and sharing your passion. It truly does like come back in a way. As long as you're genuine and
response when you put it out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is what you want to do. Obviously you're highly talented at what you do too, so that helps a great deal, but like
thanks.
Reaching out and contacting people and putting yourself out there
and
starting conversations and saying, hey, like you need work, this is what I can do for you, and that kind of stuff. For sure.
That's how a lot of this business works, is definitely putting yourself like because there's a lot that it's not like these opportunities just come, right? There's a lot of that lead up work. And you said you just put out a proposal, right? And it's like it's like putting together like a media kit and like really selling your service.
For sure.
You know, it's not I shouldn't say like I just put myself out there, right? It's like I put in the groundwork and the foundations there, and now once you get established, it's more word of mouth. But like in order to get those initially, you have to pitch and like throw out ideas. Like that California project was an idea that we pitched. And it wasn't something that they like put out a job application for. Right. It's like we sold that idea and they funded it.
Can you speak a little bit more about that?
The process of it?
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, that project was super crazy too because we didn't get the confirmation of the rental cars until we landed.
Oh, wow.
So like we landed, got off the plane, and
So
I
you
got
had
my
no
email.
idea Teslas were.
Yeah.
You had no idea. Oh, God.
No, well, like we knew about the Teslas. That's what we
okay.
pitched. It was a eco-friendly road trip. So like
Okay.
we had this whole trip planned, and like the road trip, and like we knew we were gonna drive from like SF to Yosemite. We knew we were gonna have to have a car basically, and so before we went there, we were like, okay, we're gonna pitch this. We're just gonna pitch this idea, and one of my friends, Pierre, knew or had worked with them. I forget like previously.
Okay.
So that helped that he knew, I guess, like the right people to throw it out to. But yeah, the idea was that was something that we came up with and just put in an email, laid it out nicely, what we needed, what our goal was, how it benefited them. That's the most important thing, because obviously it benefits us, like to work with the tourism board and stuff like that, and just like travel and document. But the whole eco thing in tandem with like the electric cars and stuff was something that they were keen on, and it benefited the company. We arranged to give them deliverables, so that was like the images that we gave them for commercial use. We gave them 6 images, and then did our kind of like social media posts, stories and stuff like that. We gave them an allotment, so because once you have an audience, that becomes valuable too, in a sense. And so, you putting out a post, you sharing stuff is valuable to the right people. Right. If you have the right audience, I should say. For sure. Because a lot of social media now is like, people buy followers, do comment pods and stuff like that. I mean, I did that when I first started because I thought that was like what I had to do. Yeah. But then I realized like building an organic audience is much more valuable. For sure. And brands can see that. Yeah. Right. And authenticity. Yeah. Well. I fall into the comment pod. Yeah. As well. So I know. I think anyone in the like Instagram social media game has. Yeah. They know. Yeah. But it's more recently that they're starting to catch on. Yeah. And I think a lot of people were burned by it. Yeah. So it makes things like this harder to do. Mm-hmm. But once you're kind of known as someone that is authentic and actually does touch people to a certain extent, right. Like it becomes even if you have 5,000 people looking at your work, if they're real people and they like what you do, that's super valuable. Yeah. Even more valuable than those people that have 2 million followers, right? Mm-hmm. They're not directly engaging with anyone at that level, Yeah, for sure. And that's where that market's going. But that's a whole different thing. Yeah. Back to like the proposal, like that's kind of how it worked. It was just putting together an idea, selling it, making sure that they were happy with the deliverables, and then delivering on it and executing.
Wow, that's what's up right there. So just to close out, what advice, if any, that you've learned in this last 16, 17 months would you give to someone maybe on the fence, on the cusp of leaving, 1 foot out the door, 1 foot in still?
Yeah. So like I said, I was in I think a good situation, and I realized that I had a chance. Mm-hmm. Well, so like for me, I should also mention that I did, and I was planning on leaving, but I also got laid off. Okay. And that was mostly because of my performance, because I was focusing on, the stuff that I do now way too much. Yeah. And I was doing that before I left. Right. So it wasn't like I was just like, okay, I'm going to do this now. Right. This was something that I was doing, burning the candles on both ends. Gotcha. While I was working that job for probably a year. And so I had a little bit of credibility, some work built up. And then what helped was because I got laid off, I got a severance. Nice. So I had pretty much the perfect situation where I was doing this and I knew I wanted to do it, and I had been doing it. And then instead of me quitting, the perfect opportunity came up where they're just like, it's not working out.
Yeah.
And so they made the call for me.
Wow.
And actually, you know, if they didn't make the call for me, I probably would have frankly never made that jump.
Wow.
You know, cause like, I don't know if I would have had the balls to do that, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it just kind of worked out, and it shoved me out kind of off the cliff. But so like, I guess that's kind of backtracking and you know, having had that experience, it's like definitely have a somewhat of a plan.
Right.
I wouldn't say I planned any of that, right?
Yeah.
You can't really plan any of that or how any of it turned out, but definitely, you know, set aside some money.
Yeah.
Give yourself a cushion, because it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
For sure.
You know, if you don't have your basic needs covered, you're not gonna, you know, how can you succeed? Right. So if you can give yourself a cushion for like, so my severance was 4 months, and that wasn't even actually enough, because once the money ran out, that's when it really hit me that I was like, okay, this needs to work, or else I have to go back, you know?
Right.
Yeah, like give yourself a few months.
Yeah.
Make sure you know you have something to go off of, right? But at the same time, just kind of have that confidence and just go for it, I think. Because like I said, once that money ran out, it really put me like my back against the wall. Yeah. And I think that's when I really started to get into my flow and stuff like that, because it was either you make it work or you don't. Yeah. You know? And I think for me, and I think a lot of people are like this too, you need something like that.
Right.
You know?
For sure. I mean, like, you putting it the way you just put it, like, I disagree.
Okay.
I think you made the leap.
Okay.
I think you made it with your actions.
Okay.
You were living in a way that led you to get laid off.
Yep.
You knew what you wanted, and you were living it out. And I think there's something to be said for that as well. I mean, like, if you realize that you're spending all this other time and it's affecting your performance at your regular day job that's supposed to be paying the bills and secure and everything like that, I mean, essentially your soul, your gut, your intuition is crying out for you to get the hell out of there.
Yeah. So,
I mean, thanks for sharing that part of it, because, like, I mean, it's important, because it's not easy. It's difficult. That's why like, I feel like this podcast and hopefully I get to have a ton of conversations with people that have left something safe and secure. But I think it's very difficult to do. Yeah. Especially if you're established. I mean, you were making 6 figures. To leave that kind of money behind it's not easy. You know.
Yeah, and
most people wouldn't do it.
Yep. Yeah, like move out of my place.
Yeah.
Sell a lot of my stuff. You know. Just
No.
We'll get back there. I'm pretty confident at some point. But yeah, like I said, I just don't need any of that.
Yeah. No, I mean, like,
and I'm much happier.
For sure. I mean, like, when you break down your story, I mean, it sounds like you would have spent the bulk of your money on travel. And that's what you're getting to do now, and you're getting paid for it, which is nuts.
Yeah, super cool.
It's amazing. So, no, I mean, just to close out, I just want to thank you, brother, for taking the time to sit down and talk with me and sharing your story. And I hope that this inspires other people. I feel like, in the humblest way, that inspiring others is the ultimate way of sharing and showing. I don't know, just uplifting other people, sharing your story and the fact that you've been able to navigate yourself to the point you're at, and being able to stand on your own 2 feet, doing what you want to do, when you want to do it, with who you want to do it for the most part. I mean, like, you're winning. Thanks, man. Yeah, it helps to hear that, because a lot of what I do is like independent and pretty lonely, actually, because you know, aside from the fun things that, you know, those trips and stuff, most of the time I'm just at home sitting, because everyone else is at work and I'm doing my thing, and editing and stuff like that isn't glamorous. You know, I'm just sitting at my computer editing, you know, but yeah, I appreciate, you know, the conversation, you having me and everything. I think it's always fun to talk about it and look back on it, because
a lot of times I'm just kind of moving and kind of just jumping from the next thing to the next, and it helps to like slow down and look back.
Yeah, I mean, I think any life of any artist is pretty lonely at times.
Yeah.
Writer, photographer, I don't care what, art, painter, you have to be on your own quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, I appreciate it. I can't wait to see where this all goes for you. Hopefully, this podcast catches on and there's a space for it for years to come, and we can have you back at some point. And
little update.
Yeah, little update and
podcast update.
Yeah. So, what's next for you?
Well, Japan. In 4 days. Shit.
Yeah.
I have so much to close out before I leave. But yeah, I think, like I said, like the beauty of it is, I don't know, it's all uncertainty.
Yeah.
But it's not uncertainty in the bad way, in the negative context that I think a lot of people view it as.
Yeah.
It's exciting uncertainty because like I could have never foreseen a lot of things that happened this year and stuff, and I'm just really stoked to see what happens and see what the next year brings and stuff like that.
Well, I know for one, I'm enjoying watching your ride and your journey. So
Thanks, bro.
Just as we leave here, where can people find you?
So I have a website. It's actually my old alias, wayfaringprofessional.com. That's where some of my portfolio work is housed, some artwork. More so just like a contact form if you were interested in a project. Always doing cool art projects. Like I'm actually doing like literally someone wants a framed time lapse, which is like super unheard of, right? Like on a 55-inch screen. So like that's something that I could have, just super cool project. I'm trying to figure that out. But like any commissions, any sort of jobs, that's where you can reach me, or you can find my work on Instagram under my name. It's just @_Alex Qian, Qian.
All right. All right, brother. I hope you have a great trip. Can't wait to see the content you guys capture when you're out there. And until next time, thanks for listening. We're out.
Peace.